Hey guys, today I'm going to show you an American classic. It's a New Orleans style beignet, but with a little twist. So instead of covering them in icing sugar, I'm going to cover them in matcha green tea icing sugar. So just a little bit different, but it's utterly delicious. All you're going to need for the dough is some strong bread flour, some unsalted butter, a little bit of sugar and some dried yeast, an egg and some milk. All we need to do is add our flour to a mixer. And obviously you can do this by hand, but it will be a little trickier because this is effectively what's known as a demi brioche. So it's a light brioche. It's not got as much egg or butter into it, but just a little bit to enrich it. So it's a really nice, rich bread dough. To that, we're gonna add our sugar and then our yeast. And then just a little bit of salt. So a teaspoon of fine sea salt. Like so. And then all we're going to do to start off with is just give that a quick mix with our hands just to get that nicely combined. And then we're going to add an egg to our milk. And then just use a fork just to whisk that together. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take a lemon and just add the zest to the dough. And that just makes it a little fresher because beignets by their nature are quite sweet because they're covered in icing sugar. So the lemon just helps to really lift the flavour and it goes really, really well with the green tea. So this will actually make a huge amount of beignets. So if you want to half the dough, go for it. You'll just have to reduce the egg a little bit, but it will make a lot of them. So this is great if you've got a lot of people coming around because actually the dough can be made ahead. So what we're gonna do is knead that dough and then pop it in the fridge overnight so that we can then just make beignets whenever we fancy. So all we're then gonna do is take our milk and our egg, pour that into our dry goods, and then take our butter, which is really, really soft, that's important, and then add that to the mixer. Then all we're going to do is turn that mixer onto low speed and mix it for about 10 minutes until the dough is no longer sticking to the sides of the bowl and it's really nice and elastic. So once the dough has come away from the sides and you've got this really beautiful stretchy dough, you just need to let that prove. So this is our gorgeous dough, really stretchy. So you can either put the dough in a bowl, cover that and let that rise at room temperature for about an hour to an hour and a half. Or if you want to make things easy for yourself, you can prepare this ahead of time and get your dough, pop it into a lightly oiled bowl, just turn the dough so that it's just very lightly covered in dough so it doesn't get a crust as it rises. Cover that with cling film and pop that in the fridge and let that rise overnight. And when you come back to it, you'll have a really nice, beautiful, already risen dough. So this is the risen dough. This is a half batch of the dough that I made yesterday. And all we're gonna do is roll that out on the surface. Now the surface needs to be fairly well floured so it doesn't stick because we're gonna leave it on the work surface to rise. So just give the surface a really nice liberal flour and then take out the dough. And then using either a rolling pin or even your hands if you want, just roll this out until it's nice and thin. So using your hands or a rolling pin, just roll this out until it's nice and thin. The shape's not really important because New Orleans beignets are traditionally square but often come in really random shapes. So don't worry too much, you just want to get a nice thin dough because these will puff up quite a lot. So once these are nice and thin, what we're going to do is just cover them with a kitchen towel and just let them sit for about 20 minutes whilst we heat up our oil. So just a couple of inches of oil in a pan and heat that up over medium heat until it gets to about 170 to 180 degrees Celsius. So for these beignets, we're not going to use plain old icing sugar. We're going to use matcha as well. So matcha is Japanese green tea powder and it's really vibrant and green. So we're going to add a couple of teaspoons of this to our icing sugar. So once that's mixed together, we can just set that aside, and then once they're fried and still nice and hot, we can give those a real liberal dusting. And actually, as the icing sugar lands on those hot beignets, the green really comes out and they look beautiful. So once our dough is at about 15 to 20 minutes until it's just started to go nice and puffy, we're going to cut them using a pizza wheel. Now, you just need to be roughly square size. It doesn't really matter exactly the shape of them. And I actually think they're quite nice when they're a little irregular, so really don't worry about it too much. So once you've cut those, they're going to then go into the fryer for about 2 minutes per side. And then you just want to use a slotted spoon just to take those out of the oil, let any excess oil fall off, and then pop them onto a baking tray that's been lined with kitchen paper so they drain off any excess oil. So once the beignets are fried, you get these little pillows of dough, and they're so full of air and they're absolutely delicious. But the dough isn't that sweet, so we need to finish it with our matcha sugar. So what we're going to do is liberally dust them in lots and lots of sugar. So the beignets should be liberally covered in icing sugar so that when you eat them, you get liberally covered in icing sugar. They're so good. If you don't like matcha, you can just use regular icing sugar. For the full recipe, you can click in the link in the box below. And please subscribe to the channel, give this a like, and leave any comments of what you want to see in an upcoming video in the comments down below.